So to start us off, I combined kind of like a movie visual as well as a PowerPoint so that it would be easier to follow along. You can see Lucille Clifton as a child in this first picture. There will be more of her through the presentation. So let's begin. Lucille Clifton was born in 1936 in Depew, New York, and grew up in Buffalo, which is very close to us. She studied at Howard University before transferring to Fredonia, very close to us as well, near her hometown. She was discovered as a poet by Langston Hughes, who we were also introduced to this semester, and Hughes published Clifton's poetry in his anthology, The Poetry of the Negro, in 1970. Lucille Clifton's work emphasizes the strength and endurance that come through adversity, focusing especially on the African American experience and family life. So she was a very relatable author. She was awarded the Ruth Lilly Poetry Prize in 2007. The judges mentioned how her writing always possessed such humaneness. In addition to the Ruth Lilly Prize, Clifton was the first author to have two books of poetry chosen as finalists for the Pulitzer Prize. Her collection, Two-Headed Women, in 1980, was also a Pulitzer nominee and won the Juniper Prize from the University of Massachusetts. She won the prestigious National Book Award for Blessings the Boat, New and Selected Poems, 1988 to 2000. She also wrote children books. Clifton was a distinguished professor of humanities at St. Mary's College of Maryland and a chancellor of the Academy of American Poets. Just as her poetry was diverse, it attracted those who were also diverse in interests or race. Clifton died in February 13th, 2010, Baltimore. The poem I've chosen from our texts is Homage to My Hips by Lucille Clifton. Clifton was a leading voice in the civil rights and feminist movements, and Homage to My Hips, the speaker takes on an empowering attitude towards her own body, expressing love and appreciation for her big hips and the power they possess. A little summary before we dip into some meat and bones is throughout this poem, Clifton uses clear and direct lines to describe her big hips. They don't fit in tiny places, nor do they make her look like a woman that society has deemed beautiful. All of the same, they are powerful, and they are hers, which that power radiates. She carries herself with confidence, and her hips to mean nothing less. The poem concludes with the speaker describing how many a man she had been spinning at by her body. Themes in Homage to My Hips. They include female empowerment, beauty, and confidence. Throughout the poem, the speaker displays the latter clearly and without hesitation. She is who she is and is content with it. Her hips are big and she loves them for it. This attitude is incredibly empowering. Her self-confidence is infectious and should be. When read in the right circumstances, it should make anyone feel happier about who they are and what they look like, which so many women struggle still with today. If we venture more into the structure and form of Homage to My Hips, we see that it is a 15-line poem that is contained within a single stanza of text. The lines do not follow a specific rhyme scheme or metrical pattern that I can see anyway. It appears to be a use of free verse, although this poem does not contain consistent rhymes or structured rhythms. There are examples of both, though they aren't consistent. They are still present and help impact the poem. And we will cover those examples a little later. As for literary devices, in Homage to My Hips, Clifton makes use of several literary devices in Homage to My Hips. These include, but are not limited to, Anaphoria is used to establish rhythm in free verse. Parallelism has to do with repetition of the structure. And alliteration is used to impact the rhythm as well. Here we reach the analysis part of Homage to My Hips. We will be analyzing lines 9 through 6. In the first lines of Homage to My Hips, the speaker jumps right into describing her hips and how much she appreciates them. Her body doesn't follow society's rules. It doesn't fit into little and petty places. Her hips aren't small and petite as social norms would have them be. Instead, they need space to move. She describes her hips as if they are separate from her. They almost have a will of their own. They are free hips. Her hips are not controlled or tied down by the world of fat shaming or body negativity. She isn't influenced by unnaturally skinny models, styles of clothing, or other people's judgments. These are the chains that she's thrown off. Now, for lines 7 to 12, her hips don't like to be held back by anything mentioned above. They don't like to be told they shouldn't look the way they do. They have never been enslaved by those who think they know best. The choice of the word slave in this line is important to note. The speaker is referring to black women who are enslaved, and many of whom are still enslaved today through sex trafficking and other working aspects that we think are, fine with labor laws, but are still slavery. She can experience her body the way she does because she isn't enslaved. She is free to love and be herself. In these lines, a reader should take note of the use of anaphoria. It is seen through the repetition of these and they at the beginning of multiple lines. These create a rhythmic list of sorts. Still a little on the last slide. Sorts that contain various descriptions of what her hips want. She also describes them as mighty and magic, a good example of alliteration. They go where they want and they do what they want. So now on to lines 13 and 15. In the final 3 lines of the poem, there are some good examples of enjambment. The speaker describes how her hips have seduced men, spinning them like a top. In my instance, more girls than men, but whatever floats your boat. They're often too much for these men to handle a fact, which further empowers the speaker to love her body. I think we all have a lot to learn from this author. Lucille Clifton was a hero for many different audiences. Her poetry takes form of something so genuine and effortless with sides of humor built in. I chose this poem from her specifically because of the issues that I've had with my body, but also the power that just being a woman fills me with due to how far I've come, how far I'm going, and the oppression that we've had. And she would know more than anyone, being a female black woman who had come from a family of slaves. She is important to our history and communication to the past. So I'd like to express the strategies that I used during this project. You can see the first 3 slides are of Lucille. She's glowing in every single one of them, no matter the oppression that she has had to make these amazing poems. But the other 3 are of me actually the first time wearing a bathing suit after I'd gained weight from college and I did not have my high school body anymore. And I really hated those hips, actually. But my friends still forced me to take pictures, and looking back, I think I look like a woman. I'm not in a girl body anymore, and there's power within those hips, like in the poem, as well as all the lowercase letters through homage to my hips. I try to include that theme throughout the project in symbolism.